This is Undeniable 21, how MSU's political correctness amid coronavirus hurts. So first, happy Palm Sunday. Very important day, and obviously, especially for all, inside, families, make sure to, celebrate that. We've got, plenty of online services going around, so it should be still very accessible, even though most gatherings are not allowed. So while MSU has taken proactive measures against coronavirus, the recent crusade against students not saying anything else except novel coronavirus and to sign an anti-hate pledge hurts the actual facing and resisting this pandemic and where it originated from, China. This is Undeniable Surrey Kelly. Here I highlight news and what was reported, things that weren't reported, and further information on leftist indoctrination and bias at Michigan State University. So, all coming up in Undeniable 21, I will share recent MSU action in terms of diversity and inclusion and that whole stuff and their anti-hate crusade, as I like to say. Much of this analysis is pulled from a recent Morning Watch article titled MSU states novel coronavirus is only acceptable term, encourages signing of anti-hate pledge. Obviously, this is on the website, pushed out on social media too. Make sure to subscribe to the website. That'll help get, you can get more access, you can get, sent right to you, and obviously follow us on social media. So first, this article recently that was, I believe, Thursday night. Thursdays they sent out an email from REHS, which is the Residence Education Housing Services of Residence Education Housing Services of Michigan State University, encouraging faculty, staff, and students and how they could address coronavirus. So it laid out 8 recommendations and then this anti-hate pledge. So this pledge reads first. And they call this, the Hate Has No Home at MSU pledge. So this is the pledge. I will work to make sure hate has no home here at MSU. I will pledge to do my part in creating and sustaining a welcoming and inclusive environment at MSU. I pledge to not commit acts of hate. I pledge to be an active bystander and to prevent and address incidents of hate and bias. So, obviously there's own problems in that pledge, obviously, because incidents of hate and bias, like incident of bias is, obviously a lot what happens in the classroom left is bias, and I mean, sure, yeah, we definitely want to get those addressed, but I doubt that's what they mean. So, and bias can mean, it's just any preference over another, which doesn't mean people, it just mean choices, lifestyles, like it's a very arbitrary and subjective thing. So, and this was formed by, the Black Student Alliance in November 2019. They were really pushing on MSU and REHS to do something because there were a bunch of hate and bias incidents, I guess, in the last semester would have been. Morning Watch reported on a lot of stuff that was going on. Make sure you look up those stories. They're all within the October-November range, but there was stuff where some leftist MSU professor sent out a survey trying to measure aggressiveness of students and offensiveness and used all these horrible terms. Like, you should not be using those terms. It's just not nice. It's not respectful. It's like swearing. You shouldn't swear. And so obviously, like, we published that, we got that out there. Got over 4,000 views on the Morning Watch. We had pretty much all the screenshots of the survey. I think we're one of the only publications that actually have that, because I screenshotted a bunch of stuff before they deleted the survey. There was also, nooses, I guess, on a dorm room. Toilet paper nooses around Halloween. MSU sided with the students who had said that it was just a Halloween prank. It wasn't meant to be in a certain shape. And then obviously MSU tried to backtrack themselves from that when they were facing all this pressure from the leftist groups. And there was an incident against Hillel. Someone vandalized that. I don't know if they include that in investigation. And so they came out and they're like, we need, more action. And so it was collaboratively made by Black Student Alliance, ASMSU's wonderful Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. They just made that position recently. I don't know really what they do in their job, but it is paid for by students. So just remember that. And then also the Residence Housing Association, which is the student government of the housing, of the dorms. So each hall has their own student government, and then from there they have a big general assembly. It's another student group on campus. So now this pledge, you're not going to make a utopia. And if your intent is to make a utopia out of this, it's a far gone measure, because this is not going to change hearts and minds and wills forever. Just think about people can pledge to do almost anything, but you don't just pledge, sign, and you're done. And secondly, in this email, they had 8 recommendations besides the signing of the pledge, but that was probably one of the main points. So right after number 1 of social distancing, which obviously that's been in the news a lot. People were encouraging that. Number 2 is called being an upstander. An upstander, which is, reading from the email, be an upstander and invite others to join you. Stand up to racist, dog whistle, ageist, xenophobic, classist, or other speech that divides our community into us and them. We all have a valuable role, especially stand up to acts of hate against anyone in Asian Pacific Island, Desi American community, pretty much Asians. And so we're supporting an Asian American racism incident reporting website where you can report acts of hate. They say words matter. This disease not discriminate. It takes goodwill and cooperation across state and national boundaries to quell the worldwide problem of COVID-19. So 2 things there. There's one thing to, have these race incidents, and another thing to fight COVID-19. Obviously, we shouldn't be discriminating people because of this pandemic at all. The intention of that line we can agree with, but unfortunately, when they're talking about us or them, and think about the racist, dog whistle, ageist, xenophobic, class, or other speech that divides our community. So any speech that divides our community. Isn't that like any speech, any opinion, any facts divide people, truth divides people? That's a very broad net. It's a very dangerous net. And as I pointed out in the last Undeniable, Trump was called xenophobic for the travel ban to China that he had. Obviously, no one really called him xenophobic when he did it to Europe. But when he did it to China, it was this big thing. Joe Biden came out, which he's now retracted on his words. Probably stuttering, but it's horrible because MSU, by their own definition, I could see several of these diversity people over there in the department probably watching the TV when Trump said, all right, no travel to China, shutting that down. Probably a lot of them thought it was xenophobic too. I mean, if the vice president is, if all the leftist media is telling us to say it is, they probably are too. So it's very dangerous. Obviously, they say that words matter, and that line, yes, words matter. That's why we write articles in the Morning Watch, and we try to get, falsehoods exposed, try to present the truth, and expose leftist bias. We definitely agree with them on that. But again, an upstander, they make it sound like you're, a virtue warrior, but be very, even just pointing out, where this came from, how it originated, they will certainly attack as being racist. And I'll talk about that in a few. Their next recommendation, number 3 out of 8, so the high up in the list, I guess, they say call it by its name. And they say use the correct term for the virus, novel coronavirus, or SARS-CoV-2, or SARS-CoV-2. And for the disease, COVID-19. No other names are acceptable. So I'm assuming you can't say Chinese virus, China virus, virus from China. They're trying to tell us what words we could say, and it's also an attempt. Obviously, we've seen Trump get in trouble. Other people get in trouble for trying to say China virus or virus from China, and people are losing their minds about this. It came from that. If it came from, you know, Norway, Sweden, I don't know, South Africa, we call it South African virus, you know, Norwegian virus. It's not against the people. It's the fact of geographical matter. It came from there. And so really this divides into and their other recommendations are pretty fair. You know, for our mother, share financially, be kind and patient, set personal goals, you know, take care of yourself. Okay, got that. Probably don't need that email to do that. Third, what does this do for us? So average MSU student getting this email, what does this do for them? Most MSU students probably don't really interact much with their emails, or at least, like, you know, they see a pledge, it's like, okay. I would imagine one of the really, you know, left-leaning hardcore that really want to show their virtue signaling would take real consideration into doing it. You know, if you really are, you know, a decent person, you act nicely towards others, you don't need a pledge. It's empty promises. So really, what does this do for us? So like this pledge, I mean, you know, for example, being a Christian, you know, you make that, you know, I made that decision, and, you know, surrender to Christ, and, you know, surrender my life to Him. But that's not like, it wasn't like wasn't like a one and done the rest of my days. You know, it's just no effort, you know, no commitments, no making of right choices, and just scoot free on whatever I do. That's not all. It's continual, day by day, as with any, you know, practice that you do, any, you know, regiment you have, you know, whether it's soldier in the army, whether it's someone dieting, whether, you know, an athlete training, there is a regiment day by day by day. You don't just, you know, sign a pledge and you're all good. So it's really, it actually downplays a real issue, because if there's this big problem of racism towards Asians during this time, and encouraging students that if they just sign this pledge, you know, and really, obviously, I mean, most students don't think that, but the way the pledge is worded, the way it's really shoved down, you know, people's throat about to sign, it does kind of take away that, you know, you don't solve this by a pledge. And you're probably not going to solve it coming from top-down diversity departments at a university. And so, honestly, it just, you don't change hearts and minds like that. And it does downplay the issue. And also, you know, the point about, you know, only saying, you know, novel coronavirus, you can't call it like Chinese virus, the China virus. We need to know the epicenter. You know, we need to know where this came from, how it came to be. And it really does hurt our fight against it. So yes, it came from, obviously, they believe, the Wuhan area of China, in wet markets, markets where, you know, dogs, cats, bats, snakes, other exotics that are typically not eaten in the West or other countries are sold. You can, you know, either get them freshly killed, freshly boiled. Many live animals also there too. They're not super sanitary. You know, that's a common fact. You know, it's third world standards in those areas, and, you know, that's not racist, that's not xenophobic. It's saying, look, there's this part of this country that does this, you know, to animals, that's unhealthy conditions, you know, things aren't really sanitary, you know, and we know that, you know, things like this can come from bats. So it's just dumb to say, you know, you can't focus on that at all. It's just about, you know, social distancing. It's just about, you know, sign this pledge. That's all you need to do. It's like, no. The medical community, they need to know us. We need to know us. The world needs to know. China needs to be held accountable. And so obviously, you know, I do think MSU has taken a lot of good steps, you know, and proactive measures. You know, they did, you know, they're restricting dining halls. You know, they have a pretty much all takeout style now. You walk in, they have bags available. They have already the food put in takeout trays. You just grab those. There's only a limited amount of people that can be in the cafeteria at a certain time. You just walk in, you get your stuff, you're out. Obviously, they're encouraging students to move out. There is classes obviously online. So those are good measures against it. But these two in this email are mute. They don't accomplish anything tangible. If anything, it's just kind of like, all right, once we get this out, you know, then we'll not be targeted for being on the sidelines against this when there's all this racism going on. You know, it seems like more they just got this out there so they can, you know, feel better. It's really, you know, what does this really do for the coronavirus? Chinese virus. So be sure to share your thoughts below. Obviously, we want to hear your thoughts. It's a free country, free speech. Make sure we keep our freedoms during this time. Be sure to share your thoughts. This has been Survey with The Morning Watch on Undeniable. Be sure to follow The Morning Watch and subscribe on our website. It's on the top right of the website, and there'll also be a box that pops up. Make sure you subscribe. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date on the latest leftist indoctrination and leftist bias at Michigan State University. Thank you.